You're deep in the Michigan woods, where the pines grow close to the road, and the sky is just a strip of black overhead. Your headlights sweep past tree trunks that seem to lean in, listening. Out here, the night sounds differently. The crickets feel far away, and the wind sounds like it's whispering through teeth. And then you hear it, a howl too deep to be a regular dog, and too sharp to be that of a wolf. As the sound rises, it bends in the middle and ends in something that sounds disturbingly like a human scream. You ease off the gas. Something moves at the edge of your headlights. Tall, wrong, walking where no dog should walk, upright and on two legs with eyes that glow of amber in the dark. Tonight we are heading into the forest and back roads of the Great Lakes State to meet Michigan's own nightmare on two legs, the Michigan Dogman. This is the land of the shadow people, and I am your host, Eric. Be sure you lock your doors, keep your hands inside the vehicle. Do not stare too long into the tree line. Long before the road sliced through northern Michigan, the forest belonged to the lumberjacks and the loggers, men who worked brutal, exhausting days surrounded by towering trees and long, lonely nights. The modern Dogman story usually traces back to 1887 in Wexford County, in Michigan's northern Lower Peninsula. Two lumberjacks reportedly encountered a creature unlike anything they had seen in the woods, standing over 7 feet tall with the head of a dog and the body of a man, standing on two legs, glaring at them with amber glowing eyes. They described it as towering over them even from a far distance, covered in dark fur, emitting a howl that sounded disturbingly like a man screaming. These men were used to wolves, bears, and wild dogs, but this was something else, something that seemed to understand it was being watched. An encounter was brief, but it was enough to start a story that would outlive them all. Over the next decade, scatters of reports of similar creatures cropped up across Michigan, especially in this northwest Lower Peninsula. The Dogman was said to appear mostly in remote wood and rural areas, often in logging areas, roads and rivers, and old settlements. Even some variations of the legends claim that the Dogman showed up in cycles, appearing in years that ended in 1887, 1937, 1957, 1967, so on and so forth, as if it was following a particular schedule pattern that it itself only understood. But we'll come back to that 7th-year pattern because it will matter in the 1980s when the legend explodes. And I'll also give my own theory and its ties to the Wisconsin werewolf, the Beast of Bray Road. Now let's talk through some classic encounters that give the Dogman its teeth. Stories from the early and mid-20th centuries that repeat the same unsettling details. One of the most talked about encounters comes from near Paris, Michigan. The story centers around a man named Robert Fortney, often described as basically a local lawman or a deputy who had a terrifying experience while out near the rural outskirts. Fortney reported that he confronted a group of wild dogs. Most of them acted like normal wild dogs would in these incidents, except for one particular one in fact. He said this dog stood up on two legs, rising to impossible heights, and stared directly at him, as if it exactly knew what it was doing. Despite being armed, Fortney was shaken to the very core of his soul, that he backed away and left, deeply disturbed by what he had seen. Here's the detail that sticks with people. This wasn't a hiker or a teenager. This was a man used to the outdoors, a rough and tough roughneck who knew animals in his area, and still said that this was something different, terrifying. Another story tied to the Dogman lore through retellings describes a sheriff who came across a driverless wagon and a four-horse team lying dead in the road, eyes wide open as if they had died in terror rather than physical wounds. Nearby, the tracks suggested wolves or dogs that had been near the scene, but no normal predator seemed capable of scaring the draft horses to death. The implications in the retellings is that something larger, more menacing, and far more intelligent than a pack of wolves had been circling the wagon. The Dogman is not confined to the roads. One story tells of a man fishing along the Muskegon River who noticed a large, dog-like animal on the bank. When you watched more closely, the creature stood up on its hind legs and stared at him, tall, upright, with a canine head and unsettling human-like postures before disappearing back into the trees. By the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, Dogman reports spread through Allegan and Main counties, as well as Cross Village up near the tip of the Michigan Mitten. Witnesses described large, dog-like creatures standing upright, tall silhouettes moving between the trees at the edge of campgrounds, amber eyes reflecting light from flashlights or campfires. These weren't centralized reports in one town. They popped up across northern Michigan, always telling the same version of the same story. A dog-headed, man-bodied creature that shouldn't exist. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the Dogman was more a local rumor than national legend. That changed in 1987. In 1987, the year ending in 7, exactly 1 century from the Wexford lumberjack encounter, a Michigan radio DJ named Steve Cook put together a novelty song for April Fool's Day. He blended scattered stories of a strange dog-like creature in Michigan with the idea that this beast appears every 10 years on the 7. 1887, 1937, 1957, 67, 77, 87. You got it. The song referenced lumberjacks in 1887 seeing a half-man, half-dog creature, a schooner captain in 1937 hearing about wild dogs tearing Bowser Harbor, a priest in 1957 finding claw marks on a church door that would have required something over 7 feet tall to make them, hippies in 1967 who claimed the Dogman scratched the van window at night while grinning at them. The whole thing was meant to be fun, spooky, a piece of radio theater. But something Cook didn't expect happened. People started calling in with their own personal serious stories. Listeners, essentially, had said I've seen that thing, and I didn't have a name for it until now. The song had accidentally given shape to an old shadow, which had been hanging over Michigan's forest for a generation or so. After the song aired, calls and letters came in from people across Michigan, all describing seeing a tall, dog-like creature cross roads on 2 legs, hearing screams in the woods that sounded half human and half animal, encounters at Main National Forest and other northern woods that matched the old lumberjack's description. The Dogman had gone from scattered tales to campfire stories to a named cryptid with a growing body of eyewitness accounts. One account from recent years involved a truck driver traveling through Main National Forest. He reportedly pulled over a remote stretch of road after hearing strange howls echo from deep inside the woods. The howls were unlike any coyote or wolves. It was deeper, with a strange, almost human-like cadence. When he stepped out of his truck to listen, he heard something large moving through the trees, branches snapping, heavy footfalls, getting closer. Then, between the pines, he saw a hulking, dog-headed-like figure standing upright, eyes glowing, chest raising and falling as if it had been running a long distance. It took a few slow, deliberate steps towards the road, as if sizing him up. The driver, overwhelmed with a sense of fear that he had become the prey, scrambled back into his truck and sped away, convinced that whatever he saw, it wasn't a normal animal. He would later say that the encounter changed how he felt about the forest forever. No tales woven into the Dogman stories. Tales of a hunter alone in a foggy autumn night in northern Michigan, pulled on a back road to track a source of strange howls. As the fog thickened around him, he realized the wood had gone unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects, just his own breathing and those distant, bone-chilling cries. He finally saw movement, a tall shape stepping between the trees. Its outline was totally wrong for a person. Definitely was wrong for a bear, but unmistakably upright with long arms and a dog-like head. The creature's eyes glowed from the limited light and began to advance towards him, each step slow and deliberate, as if it had all the time in the world. The hunter raised his rifle, but before he could fire, the dogman leapt sideways into the darkness with astonishing speed and vanished into the trees. The encounter lasted only seconds, but the image of those eyes and that unnatural gait stayed with him long after he fled into his truck. Even today, people in places like Wexford County, Mainstein, Allegan, and Cross Village still swap dogman stories. Some old, some recent. And those reports and stories include tall, dark, dog-like silhouettes pacing at the edge of campgrounds, something heavy walking on two legs around cabins at night, leaving only partial tracks, strange hallmark-like door on the doors, sheds, or trees, higher than any normal dog or coyote could reach, or even that of a normal man. Many of the witnesses did not go to the media. They'll tell their family, their close friends, and maybe, just maybe, a podcast like this one. So what are people exactly seeing in the Michigan woods? Well, let's talk about a few possibilities. The first one is the skeptic's explanation. People are seeing wolves, coyotes, and large dogs in poor lighting. Bears briefly standing on hind legs can look surprisingly human and terrifying at a distance. Combine that with the power of suggestion once you hear about the dogman story. Fear, adrenaline, and fog or darkness. It's easy to see how a normal animal can morph into a monster as someone's memory. The second is the believer's theory. Witnesses consistently describe a creature that appears comfortably walking on two legs, not just rearing briefly like a bear. Its height, build, and gait doesn't match that of any known animal in Michigan. In this view, the dogman is an undiscovered species or some kind of regional variant of the broader dogman or werewolf phenomenon reported in other states. And then there's the supernatural entity theory. Some people lean into a more paranormal explanation. A guardian spirit tied to Michigan's forest or older burial or sacred sites. Shapeshifter, werewolf type, being that lives partially in our world and partially in another. The lack of physical evidence, no bodies, no conclusive tracks, combined with intense fear and a sense of presence, some witnesses describe, push them towards a supernatural answer. And the fourth theory, folklore, hoaxes, and a very effective song. Can't forget that once Steve Cook's Dogman song hit the airwaves, the legend went from niche to statewide phenomenon. That means some encounters may be hoaxes or exaggerations. Some reports are likely to be shaped by the details of the song itself. But even if you were to strip away the obvious copycats, there is still that stubborn group of quiet, reluctant witnesses, people who have nothing to gain who say, I saw something out there, and it still scares me when I think about it. I do want to throw one theory in here, to go off script, is that the Michigan Dogman is somehow tied to the Beast of Bray Road in Walworth County, Wisconsin. If it is true that these sightings, as it seems to have a niche of appearing every year on the 7th, give the creature enough time to migrate from the UP, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, which is connected to the state of Wisconsin, down to southeastern Wisconsin to Auburn. Makes me wonder if there is a migrating pattern between the two. Well, something to have to study on. Maybe perhaps you have a theory about that too, or maybe have some ideas where I'm missing it. Well, hopefully we'll have a future episode on that, and maybe I can give you a more definitive conclusion. But with that, what do you think about what is walking in the backwoods and forest trails of Michigan? Is the man just a misidentified creature, a bear, a big dog, a hidden predator that we have not formally recognized, a new cryptid? Or is it a spirit of the forest, still haunting the places where men once carved roads through ancient trees? Or has the legend become so strong that it has bled into reality, becoming a living topa, as they would say? The next time you find yourself driving through a lonely stretch of highway near the Mason National Forest, or pulling into a quiet campground in northern Michigan, pay attention to the tree line. If you hear a howl that blends halfway between wolf and man, or you catch a glimpse of something tall and dog-headed watching from the shadows, remember you are not alone. There are plenty of others who have seen this too. If you've had your own encounter with the Michigan Dogman, or any upright canine nightmare stalking the edges of your headlights, I want to hear you. You can send your story to landoftheshadowpeoplepodcast at gmail.com, or leave a comment below on whatever podcast or video streaming service you are using. And if you do, your experiences might become part of a future episode of Land of the Shadow People. Until next time, keep your campfires close, your flashlight handy, and your eyes on the woods. Because of Michigan, the night goes quiet and the howls start.